Hey, hey, hey. Before we jump into today's topic, I want to take a moment to just acknowledge something that's been weighing on a lot of people's minds. The world feels so heavy right now. No matter where you turn, there's always something, another tragedy, another crisis, another reason to feel like things are just spinning out of control. And if we're honest, bringing our best selves to work in the middle of all of this isn't easy. Just think about what's happened recently. We've had hurricanes that have left millions without power, wildfires in California that have displaced whole communities and caused billions in damages, tornado outbreaks across multiple states, record heat waves. Here in Texas, we had 90-degree weather in February. Record heat waves, domestic terrorism, contentious politics that continue to divide the nation, assassination attempts, corruption, new health scares like E. coli and the tuberculosis outbreaks, cybersecurity attacks, global unrest, wars that are happening on multiple fronts. It's a lot, y'all. It's a lot. And this is the world that we're going to work in. Which brings me to this letter that I received from a manager named Karma. Maybe you can relate to what she's feeling right now. The letter says, "Hi, Dr. Walker. I'm reaching out because honestly, I don't know how to process everything happening in the world right now, let alone lead my team through it. Every time I turn on the news, it's another tragedy, another crisis, another reason to feel like things are spiraling. It's all so heavy and it's been hard to focus. At work, I'm doing my best to stay present, but I can feel the weight of everything creeping into my day. My team feels it too. Some are hurting, some seem completely unbothered, and I don't know how to bridge the gap. I want to be there for them, to create a space where they feel seen, but I don't know what to say or even if I should say anything at all. What if I say the wrong thing? What if I make things worse? It feels like no matter what I do, I could step on a landmine. Things are so divisive right now, and I'm scared of making a mistake that could put my job or my reputation at risk. At the same time, I don't want to be silent when people need support. I don't want to ignore the reality we're all living in just because it's uncomfortable. I guess I'm asking, how should I show up? How do I support my team when I barely feel grounded myself? How do I balance being authentic with being professional? And most of all, how do I make a difference when everything feels so overwhelming? I'd appreciate your guidance, Karma." That's how we're starting today's episode. Welcome to the Lead with Levity podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Heather Walker, and I know some of you are listening right now and you feel exactly like Karma does. You're showing up, you're trying to focus, but the weight of everything happening in the world is making it hard. Your team members may actually be living in different realities too. Some completely unbothered, some are hurting, some are completely disengaged, and some just don't know what to talk about. And they really don't want to talk about what's happening at all. So today I want to kind of dive into this and hopefully share some tools for you, some inspiration to help you figure out how can you show up as a leader in a way that brings people together instead of pushing them apart, pulling them apart, you know. So I want to respond to 3 questions today. The first is, what's your role as a leader when it comes to creating a sense of belonging? The second question is, what guiding principles can you put in place to keep everyone on track? And the third question is, how can you check in without overstepping, right? So let's start with the first one. What's your role as a leader when it comes to creating a sense of belonging? Let's tackle this word belonging first. Belonging. I belong here. I'm accepted for who I am and for what I bring to the table. I'm a valued member of this group, which The group could be your team or it could be your organization. But I'm a valued member of this group. You took the time to take me through this whole interview process, so I better belong to this group at this point. As a manager, you need to recognize that a sense of belonging is so powerful because it motivates behavior. Okay? If you care about nothing else, think about it in that way. It motivates behavior. When you feel like people have your back and they are working to support each other, you see that people are more willing to go above and beyond to solve problems for each other when they have each other's backs, when they feel like they're a part of the same group. They want to continue to be in that group, right? They want to be loved, adored, appreciated by that group. They'll do anything for that group. So, how do you create a sense of belonging for everyone? And I think a better question, and a question that I'm going to actually answer, is can you create a sense of belonging for everyone? And I have a controversial point of view on this. I don't think it's practical to try to create a sense of belonging for everyone on every topic all the time. I don't think it's practical to create a sense of belonging for everyone on every topic all the time. But you can create a sense of belonging based on what you say you value. And a lot of companies wouldn't have an issue with people feeling like they don't belong, with people feeling like they're not safe, if they would just truly live the values that they have on the poster, on their walls, in their conference rooms, all over the place. If they live those values consistently, and if those values actually penetrated into all layers of the company, not just the marketing team, HR, communications, not just customer service, but is your finance team living the values? Is your IT team living the values? Are they living the values in the plant, in the manufacturing setting, in the car, on when they're delivering those packages? Does it penetrate to that level? And what does that look like? What do your values look like at every level of your organization? I bring this up because some of the trendiest values were put all over the walls and websites of companies that did the exact opposite. Things like integrity, teamwork, excellence. Anyone remember Enron, Wells Fargo, BP? Yeah, you might not have worked at any of those companies, but that doesn't let you off the hook either. There are lots of ways that companies veer away from their stated values, and that drift makes it easier for some people to be treated poorly. So I would challenge you, do you say that you're about integrity, except when there's a lot of money at stake? Do you say you value teamwork, but you don't want to share resources and ideas with other teams? You kind of like work in silos, right? Do you believe in operational excellence, but you won't upgrade your IT system? Remember what happened with Southwest and their whole system shut down because they didn't upgrade it for umpteen years? What matters more to you, operational excellence or sort of cheap prices? Which one of those values, which one of those things do you value more? Be very clear about that. If you say that you value fun, does that mean that some people's version of fun is honored and everyone else is just being too serious if they don't think it's fun or funny? If you say that you value adaptability, do you give people everything that they need to be successful when it's time to pivot? Or do some team members get more resources, time, advance notice, even consideration? Do some people get more than others? Now is a good time to remind yourself of your company's values and what got you excited about working there in the first place. Go ahead and take a moment. If you're at your computer right now, while you're listening to me, go to your company's website, pull up the values and really ask yourself, how are these values showing up at work? And is everyone being held to the same standard here? Because work doesn't happen in a bubble. Your team isn't walking into the office or logging into Zoom and magically forgetting everything that's happening outside of the workplace. They're bringing all of that in with them: the stress, the opinions, the emotions, the distractions. And whether you realize it or not, that's showing up in how they work, how they're communicating with each other, the amount of patience they have or don't have with each other. So, to answer that first question, what's your role in creating a sense of belonging? I would encourage you to focus on creating a space of respect where every human that's working in your organization is guaranteed to be treated with dignity. And take a look at your values and make sure that those values are being consistently lived out at different levels, and they're reflected in your processes, in your structure, in how you're rewarding people, in how you're communicating with people, in how you're supporting each other. That's my challenge to you. And if you want more on that, I encourage you to check out episode 14. I know we're a long way from episode 14. I think we're on episode 158 right now. But I would encourage you to go back and check out episode 14, How to Solve Conflict with Your Dignity Intact. It's one of my favorite guests, Donna Hicks. Donna told me about her time with Desmond Tutu and how she was able to negotiate conflict by helping people get to a place where they could see their opponents as people first. And I think that's something that we need right now in the world. We need more of that, is to be able to see each other as people first. So I encourage you, go back and check out that episode. And let's see what else. I had a really good conversation with a thought partner of mine recently, and they asked me, why is it that in order to care about the suffering of others, we say and we hear on commercials and things like that, well, what if this were your mother? What if this were your sister or your brother? What if this happened to your child? What if this were your partner? And you hear messages like that, and the idea is when you hear that message, it's supposed to cause you to take a step back and reflect and grow your heart and your empathy for the other person, because now you see them as a part of your inner circle, your family, right? So the question was, why do we have to have a close relationship to care about the humanity of another person? And I wish I could say that we don't. And the truth is we don't. The truth is, don't misquote me on this. The truth is we don't. However, our tendencies are to care more about people who we see as like us. We know this to be true through so much research. That's why managers tend to promote people who are like them. They tend to hire people who are like them, tend to give people opportunities when they say, oh, we've got a lot in common. This person, I trust them because they're like me. I understand them because they're like me. So one way that I get around this common bias is to remind myself that every single person on this planet has hopes, dreams, fears, and frustrations, just like me. Bring them in. Every single person on this planet has some things in common. We all have hopes, dreams, fears, and frustrations. What kind of care do they need? And how can I show them that right now? And I know personally, if I'm not in a good mental space, what can I do to make sure that I'm okay before I go and approach my team? Because if I approach my team and I'm tired and fried and stressed out and impatient and just like rah, I'm going to have worse outcomes than if I didn't approach them at all. So You want to make sure that you are taking care of yourself first and filling up your cup first and coming from a place of love. And I use the word love intentionally here. I'm caring about you as a human being, and I want you to know that I'm here for you as your manager, as your leader. If there is something that is getting in the way of your ability to be effective in your job right now, I want us to be able to talk about that. So even if people aren't saying anything, that doesn't mean that they're not affected by recent events. You might have someone on your team who's frustrated, but they don't want to bring it up. Or someone who's assuming that they know what their coworkers think. They know where their coworkers stand. And so now they're starting to actually avoid people because they don't want to start any drama or be pulled into any drama. Maybe people are tiptoeing around certain topics instead of having real conversations. And if you lead people, your job isn't to force everyone into debates. And you certainly aren't expected to pretend everything is fine. I am not saying that. Your job is to make sure that this silent tension isn't getting in the way of work. So here's some questions that you can ask yourself. Am I avoiding tough conversations because they make me uncomfortable? Am I shutting people down when they try to talk? People don't need you to be perfect. They don't need you to come with the best words that you've wordsmithed and legal has blessed these words. They don't need you to be perfect. They just need you to be present. And that brings me to the next part, the next question. What guiding principles can you put in place to keep everyone on track right now, so you're not getting super distracted by everything that's going on? I see leaders falling into one of two camps right now, especially when it comes to dealing with workplace tension. They're either avoiding it or they are way too involved. And avoidance looks like pretending nothing's happening and hoping that the issues are going to resolve themselves. And you really don't want to avoid issues because people are going to start to feel like you aren't there for them. But on the flip side of that, you don't want to be too involved because some leaders out there are making the mistake of thinking that they need to fix things. And they get really aggressive, really aggressive with their personal views. And this can make people on the team uncomfortable and feel like they need to defend their position. So you want to remind everyone, these are the values, and set some guidelines, right? Some guiding principles that we're going to follow this year. Agree up front that you're going to bring that topic back, bring it back to what we need to do to actually get the job done. Second principle, it's best to assume that you don't know what your coworkers are thinking. You don't know where they stand until they tell you. This is a good general rule of thumb to keep yourself from blabbing on about something that the other person feels strongly against and potentially harming your relationship with them. It's also a good rule of thumb to keep yourself from accidentally assuming something about the other person that is completely untrue. The third principle is respect is non-negotiable. Disagreements are okay, but disrespect is not okay. We can challenge ideas without attacking people, right? So respect is non-negotiable. Assume that you don't know where they stand or what they're thinking. And if a conversation is creating more division than clarity, pull it back and bring it back to what actually needs to happen to move the needle forward at work. And the last question that I want to respond to today is, how can you check in without overstepping? I don't want you to miss this. I really don't. Because you actually have an opportunity to build rapport when you check in. I once worked with this manager who thought checking in meant just walking by my desk saying, "Hey, crazy world out there, right?" Okay, have a good day. Let's get to work. And that person was so surface level all the time. You don't, I didn't even need to answer the question. I could just say, uh-huh, and they would just keep moving. They wouldn't know how I really feel. I wouldn't have to tell them anything. And we never got past that surface level, right? It doesn't help anyone to stay at that level. So don't just settle with your version of hi and bye, whatever that looks like. Don't do that to another person. I want to contrast that with a manager that I had who was really good at this. She would say, "Hey, I know there's a lot happening right now. If anything's making work harder, let me know how I can support you." She didn't pressure me to share all the time because I might have thought that that was a little weird. She just made space for it. And that made all the difference. So, how do you actually lead through this? How do you check in with your team without overstepping? Here's what you do: you check in like a therapist. Yeah, I said that. Like a therapist. Here's some things not to say. Don't say, "I assume this situation must be really upsetting for you. This is hard for all of us, right? Let's take a moment to acknowledge how awful this is." Don't do any of that. Don't assume that they are upset. Don't assume that they are bothered. Don't assume that they want to talk to you about what's going on. Instead, a better approach would be, "I know there's a lot going on. How are you holding up? If anything is making work harder, let me know how I can support. I'm here if you need anything." So we're not assuming. You want to position yourself as neutral. And when you do that, you're going to be able to get people to open up around you and actually work with you. And brownie points, if you want to add some metrics to it so that you can run, I want to give you some brownie points. If you want to run your own pulse checks and add some metrics to this, it's a great way to keep an eye on how focused your team is, and a way for you to sort of address distractions before they really slow you down. And it's a 3-question pulse check that you can start doing. Question 1 is, on a scale of 1 to 5, how focused and productive have you felt this past week? And you could even break that up into 2 questions. On a scale of 1 to 5, how focused have you felt this past week? On a scale of 1 to 5, how productive have you felt this past week? And what's one thing that would make next week easier or more productive for you? You can send these questions out in an email, you can set up a quick form, or you can even ask these questions during your one-on-ones. And if you took my How to Use Documentation to Get the Recognition and Pay You Deserve course, which I encourage you to, it's great. It is. You are probably wondering, how can you turn this into a receipt? So if you took the course and you're wondering, how can I turn this into a receipt? Think about it this way. When things stabilize, the leaders who showed up during uncertainty are going to be the ones who get promoted. They're going to be the ones that people recognize and trust. And here are a few examples of how you can document that impact. Over the last 3 months, while other departments reported a drop in engagement, our team maintained a 90% engagement score. That sounds amazing, right? Or after implementing structured check-ins, feedback surveys showed a 25% increase in employees feeling comfortable sharing ideas. Or remember that focus check? We introduced a work focus check, and within a month, 80% of the team reported more clarity on priorities. if you're interested in taking that course, you can go to my Instagram page at Lead with Levity, and there's a link in the bio to that course. Ultimately, I want you to see this as an opportunity. I want you to see this as a moment in time where you can take uncertainty and you can turn it into something amazing for yourself and for others. Do one thing today and every day to help someone on your team feel more supported. And this is what I want you to do. This is my challenge for you, okay? I want you to think about your team for a second. Who's been quieter than normal? Who might need a check-in, just a quick check-in? Maybe you haven't heard from them in a bit, haven't seen them in a while. Who could use a little extra clarity right now? Just pick one person right now, not later, right now. And I want you to send them a quick message on Slack, on Teams, on Google, on text, whatever you use. Just send them a quick message right now. You could say something like, I know there's a lot going on here and in the world lately. Just wanted to check in. How's everything feeling for you lately? It takes 60 seconds, y'all, to show up for someone and to show them that you care. And I guarantee you, someone in your life needs this message right now. I guarantee you. So I want to challenge you to actually do this today, right now, not next week, not next quarter, today. And when you do it, I want to hear about it. I want you to send me a message. You can DM me at Lead with Levity on Instagram, or find me on LinkedIn and send me a message. Tell me what happened. If you're serious about being a leader who shows up, show me the receipts. I want to see them. And I want to close with this. Right now, a lot of people are struggling, checking out, waiting for things to settle down. You've got an opportunity right now. In fact, if you listen to episode 156, if you heard that episode, you're going to realize that you actually have 4 opportunities right now if you use my system of receipts, connection, courage, and clarity. So here are your 4 opportunities. Ready for them? Okay. You can use receipts to prove that you can lead in times of uncertainty. You can build stronger relationships while others pull away, relationships that can serve you well in the future. You can be courageous by being there for your team and leaning in when others hesitate. And you can create clarity for people to help them focus when everything feels chaotic. So Karma, if you're listening, this is how you show up. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to create space. You just need to be present and let your team know that they're not alone in this. You're there for them. People are going to remember how you chose to lead through this time, not because you had all the answers, but because you made sure that they didn't have to find them alone. Thank you. If you haven't subscribed to this podcast, I don't know what you're doing because you're missing out on a lot of good, juicy information. So please make sure that you subscribe.
Thanks for tuning in to the Lead with Levity podcast. To get resources mentioned in this episode and find out what we're all about, check us out at leadwithlevity.com.